I sat in my car outside Jessica's apartment, my fingers drumming against the steering wheel. The street was quiet except for the occasional passing car, but inside my head, there was a storm. A week ago, I was planning our wedding. A week ago, I was imagining our future together. Now, I was sitting here trying to push down the feeling that something was very, very wrong. I wasn't supposed to be here. Jessica thought I was out of town for work. A last-minute trip she had barely reacted to when I told her. I should have known then. Jessica always complained when I had to leave. But this time, she had just nodded, barely looking up from her phone. That was the first thing that set off an alarm in my head. The second? The way she suddenly became impossible to reach after I left. Calls ignored, texts answered hours later with short, dismissive replies. Something wasn't right, and I needed to know what. I was about to step out of the car when a movement caught my eye. Someone was walking up to her apartment door. A man, tall, confident, moving like he belonged there. I couldn't see his face clearly under the dim streetlight, but I saw the way he moved. The way he knocked like he had done it 100 times before. The way Jessica opened the door immediately. I froze. She was expecting him. Jessica laughed as she pulled him inside, her voice carrying through the night air. And then she kissed him. I felt like my body had turned to stone. It wasn't a quick, guilty kiss. It was deep, familiar. Lovers kissing. My vision blurred. The world tilted. Every single memory I had with Jessica, the late-night talks, the inside jokes, the plans for the future, shattered like glass in my mind. She wasn't just cheating. She was in love with him. I should have walked away. I should have turned around, gone home, and figured out what to do next. But something stronger than reason pulled me forward. I needed to see it with my own eyes. So I got out of my car. I crossed the street, my footsteps soundless on the pavement. The door had closed, but I could still hear them inside, her laughter, his voice, muffled but unmistakable. I moved to the side window, my hands shaking as I peered in. And that's when my world truly fell apart. Jessica wasn't just cheating on me. She was pregnant. And it wasn't mine. I stared through the window, my breath coming in short, uneven gasps. Jessica stood in the living room, her arms wrapped around him, her body pressed close like it belonged there. But it wasn't the embrace that made my stomach drop. It was the way he rested his hand on her stomach. The way she smiled up at him, eyes glowing with something I had never seen before, something that wasn't for me. And then she said it. He still doesn't know. A quiet laugh from him. And when were you planning on telling him? Jessica sighed, rolling her eyes like she was talking about an annoying coworker. I was gonna wait until after the wedding. He's so obsessed with his little perfect life, he'll do anything to keep it from falling apart. He'll never leave me. The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. My knees felt weak. She knew. She knew the baby wasn't mine, and she had never planned on telling me. She had been planning to let me raise another man's child. Willingly. Maliciously. And she thought I'd just accept it. Something inside me snapped. I stepped back from the window, my mind racing. Every laugh we shared, every moment of intimacy, every promise she ever whispered in my ear, it was all a lie. A cruel, twisted joke at my expense. And she thought she had me wrapped around her little finger. She thought I wouldn't find out. She thought I wouldn't do anything about it. I turned away, forcing my breathing to slow. My first instinct was to burst in and confront her right then and there, to rip the mask off her face and let her know that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. But that would be too easy for her. She didn't deserve easy. No, she deserved consequences. I walked back to my car, my mind already working. If she wanted to lie, manipulate, and betray me, I'd make sure she regretted it. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my dark apartment, staring at the wall, replaying her words over and over again. He'll never leave me. That smug, entitled confidence in her voice. Like I was some pathetic idiot who would happily take care of another man's child just because I loved her. I did love her, and she killed that love with a single sentence. By the time the sun rose, my decision was made. Jessica and her lover thought they had me trapped, that I'd go along with their disgusting little plan. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I wasn't just going to walk away. No, that would be too simple. She needed to feel the kind of betrayal that made your soul rot from the inside out. I started with her family. Jessica had always painted me as the perfect fiancé to them. Her mother adored me. Her father respected me. They thought I was the best thing to ever happen to their daughter. So I made sure they heard the truth from me. I sent her parents a polite but devastating message. I told them I had uncovered something painful, something that made it impossible for me to continue the wedding. I didn't give details yet, just enough to plant the seed of doubt. Then I did the same with her friends, the ones she respected, the ones whose opinions she actually cared about. By the time she woke up that morning, confusion was already spreading through her social circle like wildfire. I ignored her calls, let her squirm, but I wasn't done. She had been planning to use me as a father for her child, lying to me for the rest of my life. If that was her game, I was going to make sure the real father had no way out. Took me 3 hours to find out who he was. Jessica was careful, but not careful enough. A little social media digging, a couple of screenshots, and there he was, Tyler, coworker. I remembered her mentioning him once or twice, laughing at his jokes, dismissing him as just a friend. Now I knew better. I found his fiancée. Oh yes, he had a fiancée. A sweet-looking woman named Rachel, whose profile was filled with pictures of their engagement, their upcoming wedding plans, her excitement about their future. My stomach twisted with disgust. Jessica and Tyler weren't just cheating. They were building their futures on lies, on people who trusted them, loved them, would do anything for them. I made sure Rachel got the truth. I sent her everything, the texts, the timestamps, the proof that Tyler had been sneaking off to be with Jessica behind her back. I told her about the baby. I told her about the plan to let me raise it. And then I waited. I knew the explosion was coming. I just didn't expect it to be so glorious. It happened faster than I expected. Jessica's first mistake was underestimating how quickly secrets unravel when the right people learn the truth. By midday, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Calls from her, her family, and even some of our mutual friends. I ignored them all. I wasn't interested in damage control. I was interested in watching her world collapse. And collapse it did. Rachel didn't waste a second. She confronted Tyler at his office in front of everyone. I wasn't there, but I didn't need to be. A mutual acquaintance later told me she walked into the building like a woman possessed, holding up her phone, demanding to know how long he had been sneaking around with Jessica. She read my message out loud, word for word. Tyler, the smug bastard who had probably felt untouchable just 24 hours ago, panicked. He stuttered, denied, then finally admitted everything when Rachel slapped him across the face in front of their colleagues. She threw her engagement ring at him, told him he was dead to her, and stormed out. But Rachel wasn't done. She went straight to Jessica. This part? This was gold. I don't know what Jessica expected when she opened her apartment door that afternoon, but I guarantee it wasn't Rachel's furious face and a phone full of receipts. Rachel didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply told Jessica that she was a disgusting, manipulative excuse for a woman and that she hoped the father of her child was worth destroying 2 relationships over. Jessica predictably tried to lie her way out of it. It's not what you think. He told me he was single. It was a mistake. Rachel laughed in her face. Mistakes don't last 9 months, sweetheart. And then the real meltdown began. Jessica called me 23 times in the span of an hour. When I didn't answer, she switched to texts. They started off defensive. I don't know what you think you know, but we need to talk. Why are you acting crazy? This isn't what it looks like. You're ruining my life over a misunderstanding. Then, the panic set in. Babe, please, just pick up. I swear. I was going to tell you the truth. Don't do anything stupid. And finally, the desperation. I need to talk to you. You can't just ignore me. Please, I'm begging you. I smiled at my screen. This was only the beginning. I let her squirm. Let her feel the helplessness, the isolation, the sheer powerlessness of watching everything slip out of her hands. By the time I finally picked up the phone that evening, Jessica was already on the edge of hysteria. What the hell did you do? Her voice was shrill, raw with panic. I leaned back in my chair, completely calm. I should be asking you that. Don't play games with me, she snapped. You went behind my back and told my parents? My friends? You? Her voice broke off, and then she hissed. Rachel showed up at my door today. I pretended to be surprised. Rachel? You mean Tyler's fiancée? I let the words sink in, enjoying the silence on the other end. Sorry, ex-fiancée. Jessica inhaled sharply. You're a monster. I laughed. She had the nerve to call me a monster. I didn't raise another man's child behind someone's back. I didn't lie, manipulate, and cheat. I didn't take advantage of someone's love, assuming they'd never leave me. But I wasn't going to defend myself. Not to her. So, tell me, I said, my voice casual, was this your plan all along? Marry me, let me play dad while you keep sneaking around with Tyler. Jessica's breath hitched. She knew she was caught. No. I never wanted it to be like this. Like what, Jessica? I asked, my patience thin. Like me finding out? Like me refusing to be your personal idiot? She exhaled shakily. I was scared. I found out I was pregnant and I panicked. I didn't know what to do, so you lied. I didn't, you lied, Jessica. I cut her off, my voice sharp enough to make her shut up. You chose to lie. To let me believe that baby was mine. To let me propose to you, plan a future with you, while you carried another man's child and never intended to tell me. I was going to tell you. When? I challenged. After the wedding? After I signed the birth certificate? After the kid started looking like Tyler and I started having doubts? Jessica didn't answer, because we both knew the truth. She was never going to tell me. I took a slow breath, collecting myself. You want to know what's funny, Jessica? I asked after a beat. You thought you had everything under control. You thought I'd never leave. You thought I'd just accept it because I loved you. Her silence was deafening. You made a mistake. I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. You forgot that I'm not you. I hung up before she could speak. And then, I blocked her number. Jessica wasn't the type to go down quietly. Blocking her number only slowed her down for about an hour before she started showing up. The first time she pounded on my apartment door so hard my neighbor texted to ask if I was okay. I didn't answer. The second time she waited for me in the parking lot outside my gym, rushing up to me the moment I stepped out. I barely had time to react before she was in my face, wild-eyed and desperate. We need to talk. I kept walking. No, we don't. Jessica grabbed my arm. You don't get to just disappear. I stopped. Slowly, I turned to look at her. I don't. I repeated, my voice dangerously calm. Jessica, you disappeared the moment you let another man put his hands on you. The moment you let him put a baby in you. That's when you lost me. She flinched like I had slapped her, but I didn't care. I made a mistake, she whispered. I laughed, shaking her off. A mistake? Jessica, losing your keys is a mistake. Forgetting a birthday is a mistake. I leaned in slightly, dropping my voice so it cut through her like a blade. You betrayed me. That was a choice. Tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't care. But she wasn't done. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope, pressing it against my chest. Just read this, she pleaded. I glanced down. The envelope was from a paternity clinic. I met her gaze again. Why would I bother? Jessica's fingers curled into fists. Because I took the test. The baby might be yours. For a second, the world froze. She said it like it was some kind of gift, like the possibility that the baby was mine would change everything. I took a slow breath, staring at her. And if it's not? Jessica swallowed hard. Then we'll figure something out. I laughed again, but this time it was pure disbelief. Wow. You really think I'm that pathetic, huh? No, I don't need to read that, Jessica. I shoved the envelope back into her hands. Because I already know the truth. You wouldn't have lied, covered it up, and played house with me if there was even a chance it was mine. If you were even 1% sure, you would have told me immediately. Her face crumbled. I took a step back, looking at the woman I once thought I'd spend my life with. Now all I saw was someone weak, selfish, and desperate. You and Tyler deserve each other, I said. And I mean that in the worst way possible. And then I walked away. Jessica wasn't done. After our last encounter, I thought she'd finally accept reality and leave me the hell alone. But I had underestimated just how desperate she was. Started small. Mutual friends texting me, asking if it was true that I was abandoning Jessica while she was pregnant and scared. Then came her family. Her mother left a voicemail crying about how she never thought I was this kind of man. Her sister messaged me, calling me heartless for turning my back on a woman who was carrying my child. Jessica was rewriting the story. She wasn't the cheater anymore. She wasn't the liar. She was the poor, abandoned fiancée left to fend for herself with a baby that was totally mine, I swear. At first, I ignored it. I knew the truth. She knew the truth. But when my own damn boss pulled me aside at work to check in because he had heard that I was going through something personal, I realized I needed to act. Jessica had declared war. So I burned her last bridge. The next time her mother called me, I picked up. Ethan, she gasped, relief flooding her voice. Thank God. I've been trying to reach you. Jessica is absolutely heartbroken. Did she tell you she cheated? I cut in, my voice flat. Silence. I could almost hear the shift in her brain as she processed my words. What? Did Jessica tell you she slept with someone else? I repeated. That she let me propose to her while she was carrying another man's child? That she planned to marry me and never tell me the truth? Her mother stammered. She said it was a mistake, that you were confused, that the test. I let out a sharp laugh. You mean the one she didn't take until I already caught her? Yeah. That's real convincing. More silence. Then a quiet, shaken whisper. So, it's not yours? No, Mrs. Thompson. It's not. And Jessica knew it. The shift was immediate. Jessica's mother was a lot of things, but she wasn't stupid. And she hated being lied to, especially by her own daughter. By the time I hung up, I knew exactly what was going to happen. Jessica had spent weeks spinning a sob story, painting me as the villain to everyone she knew. But the second her mother turned on her, the second her own family started asking questions, that was the beginning of the end. And I wasn't done yet. Jessica's world was crumbling. I could see it happening in real time. Her mother must have gone straight to her, because within an hour of our conversation, Jessica was blowing up my phone again, but this time, it wasn't begging. It was rage. What the hell did you say to my mom? You had no right to bring my family into this. You're ruining my life. Are you happy now? I smirked at my screen. She was finally losing control. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. The damage was already done. Jessica had spent so much time making me out to be the cold, heartless monster who abandoned his pregnant fiancé, but now? Her own family was looking at her differently. They weren't defending her anymore. They were questioning her. And that was the one thing Jessica couldn't handle. She showed up at my apartment that night. I knew she would. I almost didn't answer. Almost let her stand out there, pounding on my door like a lunatic. But I wanted to see it. I wanted to watch her break. So I opened the door. She looked like hell. Eyes red-rimmed, hair a mess, breathing hard like she had run here. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Completely calm. You shouldn't be here, Jessica. Her lips trembled. You didn't have to do this, she whispered. I arched a brow. Do what? Tell the truth. Jessica flinched. You don't understand. Oh no, I understand perfectly. I stepped forward, forcing her back. You were fine with lying. Fine with trapping me. But now that everyone knows who you really are, now suddenly you care? Tears spilled over. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I scoffed. Yeah? And how exactly did you mean for it to happen, Jess? I tilted my head. Were you going to wait until the baby was born to break the news? Or were you just hoping I'd be too stupid to ever figure it out? She was shaking now. I loved you, she whispered. No, my voice was ice. You used me. Jessica sucked in a sharp breath like I had punched her in the gut. I held her gaze, my face unreadable. You know what the saddest part is? I asked, my voice quieter now. If you had just told me the truth, maybe I would have helped you. Maybe I would have been there for you. Not as your husband. Not as a father. But as a friend. Her breath hitched. But you lied, Jessica. And now? I exhaled slowly. Now you have nothing. Jessica stared at me for a long moment, her chest rising and falling, lips parted like she wanted to say something, but what else was there to say? She had lost. I stepped back inside, gripping the edge of the door. Go home, Jessica. And then I closed the door in her face. Jessica didn't knock again. She just stood there. I could hear her breathing on the other side of the door, ragged and uneven, like she was trying to hold herself together. For a second, I wondered if she would break down, if she'd finally accept what she had done and just walk away. But no. Jessica had one last card to play. The next morning, my boss called me into his office. I expected another half-hearted, "Are you okay?" speech. What I didn't expect was for him to fold his hands on his desk, frown, and say, "Jessica filed a complaint against you." I almost laughed. Of course she did. Apparently, she had contacted my company's HR department and accused me of creating a hostile environment by spreading lies about her and harassing her through our mutual social circles. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. I sat there, completely calm, as my boss awkwardly stumbled through corporate nonsense about how they took these matters seriously but understood this was a complicated personal situation. I let him finish. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. "I'd like to show you something," I said. And then I showed him everything. The texts, the proof of her affair, the receipts that she had been the one spreading lies about me, trying to turn my own friends and family against me, the messages from her harassing me. By the time I was done, my boss looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. He cleared his throat, shifting in his seat. "Well, this certainly paints a different picture." "Yeah," I said flatly. "So, should I be the one filing a complaint?" That shut him up real fast. In the end, Jessica's little stunt backfired spectacularly. Not only was her complaint immediately dismissed, but now my company had her name on file as someone who had tried to manipulate HR to get back at an ex. She had officially lost every last ounce of control. And the best part? I wasn't even done yet. Jessica had nothing left. No control. No power. No reputation. But I wasn't finished. She had spent weeks spinning her web of lies, trying to make me out to be the villain. She thought she could cheat, manipulate, and trap me into raising another man's child and still walk away with her perfect little life intact. She thought wrong. Now it was time for the final nail in the coffin. I waited a full week before making my next move. I wanted Jessica to sit with the consequences, to feel the weight of everything crashing down. I knew she had been scrambling to save face, trying to explain to her family, her friends, why suddenly everyone had turned against her. I knew Tyler had ghosted her completely the second Rachel dumped him. He never wanted the baby. He never wanted her. Jessica was alone. And then I dropped the last bomb. The wedding venue. See, when Jessica and I booked our venue, we had to put down a huge, non-refundable deposit. A deposit I had paid entirely on my own. She never put in a dime. And since the venue was in my name, I had full control over it. I could have just canceled. But that would have been too easy. Too boring. Instead, I donated our entire, fully paid wedding date to another couple. A random couple I found through an online wedding forum. Two people who had just gone through hell trying to plan their own wedding after some financial hardship. They were strangers to me, but after reading their story, I knew they deserved it. So I gave it to them. The venue, the catering, the decorations, everything Jessica had spent months planning. And then I made sure she found out. The meltdown was glorious. I don't know how she found out. Maybe the venue called to confirm something, maybe one of our old friends mentioned it. But the second she did, she lost her mind. She showed up at my place one last time, screaming at me in the hallway like a lunatic. How could you do this to me? I just smiled. You mean, how could I give something beautiful to a couple who actually deserves it? Her face turned red. That was my wedding. No, I corrected. That was our wedding. And now, I shrugged. Now it's theirs. Jessica made a strangled noise in her throat, fists clenched at her sides. She wanted to hit me. I could see it, but there was nothing left to fight for. She had already lost. I leaned in, lowering my voice just enough that only she could hear me. You said I'd never leave you. I smiled. Looks like you were wrong about that too. And with that I walked away.